Huh. The recording started. This is good to know. The recording
Right.
started. So guys, welcome. We're here to talk a little bit on the Canadian Women's Olympic squad, which came in. We have AC Lang from wsoccer.ca. Always a friend of the show. Glad to see her here. And we're hooded up because it's late and I'm way too bright. I can't fix that, but I'm way too bright in this camera, but we're good. AC, how are you doing this evening?
Good, good. Just watched the men's Copa game, so the semifinals, but ready to talk about women's soccer as well. Thanks for having me, as usual.
Always a pleasure to have you. And yes, congratulations to the men on their run. Still have third place game to come on Saturday. Depending on when you're watching this might be the same day. So watch a little bit on the WOSO, then get the men's soccer in as well. But the Canadian Women's Olympic squad, we have it on the screen here. Just want to run through it. Any surprises for you? I'll just go through it. You tell me what surprises. I think there's some two, maybe two and a half controversies, we'll call it. But goalkeeper Sabrina D'Angelo can do no wrong for me because she's from Welland. I've said this from day one, so you all know this. Kaylin Sheridan, goalkeepers, defenders Kadisha Buchanan, Sydney Collins, Vanessa Gilles, Ashley Lawrence, Jade Riviere, and Jade Rose. Your defenders, midfield, Simia Ujo, Jesse Fleming, Julia Grosso, and Quinn. And then up top, you have Janine Becky, Jordan Heitema, Chloe Lacasse, Adriana Leon, Nichelle Prince, and Evelyn Vienne, with the alternates being Gabrielle Carl, Lysiane Prou, Zelina Shidorsky, and Deanne Rose. So 22 players all together. Any standouts for you based off of players who made it or maybe players who did not?
Yeah, first of all, great pronunciation of the French names. Very impressive.
I'm
Well done.
bilingual. I have to come through for that. I didn't grow up in the
Very
NAG region and
nice.
not be franco-ontarien. Alors, je dois parler en français quand je parle en français.
Very nice. Very nice. We, in terms of standouts, definitely the Sydney Collins shout. I'm sure we'll get into. I think that's kind of a big one considering she hasn't had any minutes for club level. And then obviously on the flip side of that coin, Gabby Carl kind of being shunted to the alternate role once again, third time in a row. Then in the midfield, no surprises. I mean, it was sad that Desi Scott didn't make it back in time, but it wasn't surprising considering how little she had played even for KC.
Mm-hmm.
Up front, certainly Nichelle Prince. I think it's out of necessity. I don't think Bev wants to make that choice, but just based on the new system that we've been playing with, it actually does make sense to me, even though the concerns are the same with lack of minutes. She hasn't played
Mm-hmm.
since the end of May, I think now. And then her her taking up a spot rather than someone like Olivia Smith being taken, and then on the alternate list as well, Deanne Rose was a surprise. Maybe not a surprise, but was kind of a bubble player in my mind. So
Mm-hmm.
interesting that she was selected over Smith as well.
No, and I think that's fair. I think you mentioned the names that a lot of us kind of focused in on. I know I thought, in terms of Olivia Smith, I guess we can start there. My first thought with her was I thought she could have been a prime candidate to take in that Nichelle Prince role, right? As that nine who can maybe be a little bit more versatile and fluid across the attacking line. Maybe she can step back a bit, go in. Now, Bev in her press conference said there were concerns with match fitness and such, but I think for the most part, everyone looking, it's a bit surprising that you say your young player of the year doesn't make the Olympic squad. Now, some may argue it's the size of the roster that affects this choice. I think it's fair, but I think also this is a coach, and when we get to the other players who are here, I think this is a coach who is loyal to her core. And that's not a problem. I think it's not surprising. I think for most Canadian fans, for myself at least, it does ring a little bit of PTSD of the World Cup, where she brought players who were there. And in the Olympics, where you have a shorter bench and a shorter leash, you don't want to get to game match day 3 and have 3 of your players already injured and then thinking to yourself, well, they were already injured when we brought them. So now we have to rotate even more and try different things. You'd rather have players that you know that can rotate through and can play throughout the duration of the tournament. In terms of Olivia Smith, how did you find her not making it, even as an alternate? I mean, we assume there's a role for her in this team moving forward, but how did you react to that mainly?
I mean, I didn't love the reasoning. The justification I thought was pretty hypocritical, I guess, because when's the
Mhm.
last time you saw Deanne Rose play two 90s back to back? If that's the
True.
criteria, then, Nichelle Prince shouldn't have made it, and
Mhm.
Deanne Rose shouldn't have made it. And so I thought that was a little bit hypocritical, especially with what you were saying about bringing the two injured players. And absolutely, people have, I'm not going to say PTSD because that's not the term, but they have,
Sure.
some concerns about the the loyalty, I guess, that she does show. And I think what stands out to me about the roster and some of those decisions that were more controversial is that this is fully Bev's roster. Like she created
Mhm.
this from top to bottom. She made some bold choices, and those bold choices say a lot about her and her priorities as a coach. And so, really interesting, kind of how it all played out. And then for Olivia Smith, honestly, in hindsight, now that the rules are coming out and like there's some minor changes to the alternate rules that are actually making it still not a 22, but it's nearing that with how
Yeah.
flexible they are changing the rules to. And so it kind of makes it even more unfortunate that she's not there because she's such a game changer. And I know Deanne Rose has been a game changer 100% in the Olympics. She seems to do well. I just haven't seen it from her since that
Mhm.
Achilles injury. So that's worrisome.
It is worrisome, and again, you want, like I said, you want to be bringing players who are playing in their best form, or at least in some sort of form, and we haven't seen that from Deanne. When it comes to almost shifting it to the back line, the defense, I almost want to add Shalina Zazdorski to this as well. Because the main thing people are looking at is, okay, you have Sydney Collins in versus Gabby Carl. And I'm almost more surprised because I had Zadorsky making the final 18. Because if you're playing a back three constantly, it doesn't hurt. You have some flexibility with a Jade Rose who can go out wide if need be. So why not carry actual four center backs that, and then you have the third that can move out. I know most people are looking at Gabby Carl, who for most people, at least for myself, I think she's earned the right to start for this team. I think Jade Revere has potential and can continue. Health has been her concern more recently. I'm happy to see her healthy and playing. But I think based off of the year, I think Gabby has the slight edge for me as that starting wingback alongside Ashley Lawrence playing there. And so I'm a bit surprised. I know for most people it was the Sydney Collins. I for what she played against Jamaica, for me, I think she showed why Bev wanted to have her because she put her directly into lineup and she performed, but we hadn't seen her play. And if she's healthy, that it's a different conversation. I think as for me, we didn't see her healthy leading up to it, so it just seems as if we're bringing another injured player. Now, according to different reports, she is, so maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's a bit more encouraging. Also, was reading that Bev sees her as that tweener where she can play out wide, but also as a center back. We haven't seen that yet, but if that's how she sees it, that's fine. But how do you feel with the comparison of what the omission say of Carl and Zadorsky to the reserves and the alternates, but then having a Sydney Collins in the final 18?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really shows how much Bev rates Collins, and she did play center back in university, I believe. So she definitely has that in her skill set. She is a
Mm,
versatile player. She can play left wing back, she can play left back, and she can play center back. And she's left footed, which is always an
mm,
asset. But so is Shalina. Um,
yeah.
yeah, I think it just really shows her priorities. I think she wanted the like fittest person in the whole like larger roster. And I think
Mm,
Collins is that. And despite not playing, she must have really aced those fitness tests because Bev mentioned in her press conference that she did actually better in her fitness testing than she had
mm,
previously, despite not playing. So I mean, she is young. It does help to be
mm,
in your early 20s for sure. So she just has that elite level of fitness, and Bev just trusts her so much even after such a short period of time. I think Shalina got put as an alternate because Bev seriously is not going to change the center backs unless there is an injury, and so if there is an
mm.
injury, she is going to call Shalina in, of course. But mid game, she said that well, obviously Collins might be able to go there. Quinn and Lawrence she mentioned as well, which I thought was wild. Lawrence is a center back, but
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
It's a
just don't
choice.
anticipate that she changes her center backs at all. So that one just surprised me a little bit less. But yeah, Gabby Carl just shafted the picture of professionalism and consistency. And as you
Hmm.
mentioned, I think a lot of people did think that she had kind of earned that start, or at least, yeah, competing with Jade Revere for that starting spot. And so you just have to kind of feel bad for her. Like, she literally could not have done anything else. She won championships in college after being a like highly sought after youth player. Then she went to go play pro in Sweden, but I think Bev's messaging to the Swedish players has been don't go to Sweden. So she went to one of the best teams in the NWSL, plays week in, week out in various positions, plays well, plays consistently well, and still it wasn't enough. So like that's tough. That's really tough.
Hmm. It is tough. It does speak to the depth of the program that we have, but also speaks to, again, a coach. A coach will always have their favorite, so I'm not gonna get too upset about it. I think a younger version of me may have just been rage tweeting about it. Oh, but after as I've matured, I'd hope I'd say you just think and say, well, this is what Bev's going to do. So on the one hand, I'm glad she has a team that she feels that she's confident that can perform well at this tournament. And that's ultimately what we're looking for as supporters of this team. We want to see them perform well.
Yeah.
On that note, what do you think the ceiling for this team is at this tournament, right? They're grouped with France, New Zealand, Colombia. You still have the likes of the US, Germany, Australia, Zambia, Spain, Japan, Nigeria, Brazil. What is the standard or the expectations that you have for this team going to this tournament?
Yeah, every team in this tournament is elite. Like there are no bad teams in the
Mhm.
Olympics. It's a very difficult, group. Oh man, what are my expectations? I mean, I think the ceiling is a gold medal. Maybe I'm delusional. I don't know what the floor is. Maybe the floor is quarterfinals. I think if we don't make it to the quarters, I would be pretty upset. And if we don't put in a good shift in the quarters, I would be even more upset.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was texting Miriam about this earlier, and I guess she had been reading all the different like predictions and who's going to get out of the group stage and who do you have as winner. And Canada, for the most part, most people only have getting out of the group, nothing really much past that. And she was like,
Mhm.
"Are we delusional? Like, are we all delusional as Canadians?" And I was like, "People forget how good we are at the Olympics for no
Mhm.
apparent reason, but we are." And so maybe we are delusional, but I'm hoping that we can at least get into the semifinals, which gives us a shot to medal. I'd be happy with that.
Mhm. I do agree with that semifinal. That's kind of where I see it. I mean, I have enough takes on women's soccer that people know them. I think the Olympics is the last time that we'll have a chance to beat the US at a major tournament.
Hmm.
I think this is Emma Hayes' first go with the squad, will be her learning experience. After that, I am on record of saying whoever wins the next Women's World Cup, I am immediately starting the conversation with, are they maybe one of the better women's teams of all time, period, based off the competition that's here. I think, like a lot of people, I see Spain being the more as the favorite, just based off what they did at the World Cup and coming into this tournament. I could see them winning this. I could also see them getting stopped by a team that just says, "Hey, we saw Japan just counter them and be clinical at the World Cup, so it's not improbable to think and see that." And then you have teams like Nigeria and Zambia who will just they will counter you to death. We're not sure if their defense, especially for Zambia, will hold up, but Nigeria is a solid squad through all. They'll give teams work. Brazil isn't just some side that just showed up. The hosts, France, are there. I think for me, my ceiling for this team is come home with a medal,
Hmm.
right? I think they could get it's plausible for them to get a gold, but ultimately I want them to come home with a medal. If
Hmm.
that means another bronze, it still shows again the Olympics. For whatever reason, we perform better there than say the World Cup. Is it the amount of teams? Is it the competition? Is the turnaround? I don't know, but that's been our tournament more so. So for me, get to at least the semis and play for something, whether it's a gold, silver, or bronze. I think that is a good showing of at least the maintaining of the standard that is Canadian women's football right now. And you
Hmm.
have that to lead into the following year as another launch pad you have with the NSL coming as well. So I think coming home with some hardware is going to be very key for me. And I think that'll be the standard I look at. Outside of Canada, are there any teams? I know I mentioned a lot of them. Are there any teams just for your own personal viewing per pleasure you're looking forward to see at this Olympics this year?
My viewing pleasure. I mean, all of them. It's so upsetting that they're all like kind of at the same time, unlike
Mm-hmm.
World Cup scheduling, because you can't watch. Well, you can watch two games at once, but I'd like to watch them all individually at separate times. But in terms of teams, I always watch Germany because I'm German, so I do
Mm-hmm.
have to support the motherland. So I'll be watching Germany. Obviously, they're always a solid team as well. I was looking at their roster though the other day, and I was like, I don't know if they have it. Like what it would take to actually win. And so I'm not sure if they'll be able to repeat their medal from 2016. But certainly Spain, I'm keeping a close eye because they just have the best collection of players by far.
Mm-hmm.
And then you mentioned the States already, so I'm not going to publicly acknowledge that I watch the States. But I like some of these African teams, like
Mm-hmm.
Zambia. Like, let's see what happens here, right?
They had a good showing. I know everyone looks at the game they lost to the Dutch. What was it, 10-4? But I'm like, you still scored 4 against the Dutch. It's worth pointing out. I think, like, for me as a Group C is just intriguing to me. That's the
Yeah,
group with Spain, Japan,
chaos.
Nigeria, and Brazil. Oh, someone is getting grouped there, and we are going to be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's Spain. I
No.
have a feeling. I don't know why. I just have this feeling, and I hate that I have this feeling that it's going to be Brazil. I couldn't
Oh
tell you
my
why.
gosh.
It's chaos, but I feel that, and like Nigeria, I look at them and I say it's either Brazil or Nigeria. I think gets grouped because stylistically they can sit with them, they can play with them, but it just comes down to the ability of where the goals are coming from. And I think both sides can do it, but then both sides also can have games where it's just, I mean, we just watched the men's Canada Copa America run, and thousands chances, nothing on frame or target, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be the teams who can get closers and finishers by the net. So that group is going to be fun to watch just because also stylistically, it's almost the possession versus the counter versus the mid to low block versus flare. It's something different in all the matchups, and I'm looking forward to that kind of to see where it is. So that is my group. Those are my teams. This again, like I said earlier, I think acknowledging our neighbors to the south. I think this may be the last chance. I've had this running theory since they've had Vlaco at the last World Cup. I thought up until the World Cup here, I mean the Olympics here, I think this is the window that the US won't maybe perform to what people are accustomed to. After this year, I feel Hayes will have a better grasp on this team. And then from there it's a conversation for Woso is going to really pop off over the next few years, which I'm looking forward to. It's a lot of good soccer content, which I do tend to appreciate. I do tend to love.
Yeah, the
Ah,
States are just looking scary, all things considered, if you look at their
mhm,
roster. Like, that is a very, very, very good group of players. I think maybe the only area where I'm not as convinced as usual for them is still, I think they have their center defensive midfield problem. Like, they don't
mhm.
have one still, really. I mean, Sam Coffey, I'll give you, but is she world class? Not yet. And then also at center back, I mean, Gurma 100%, one of the
Oh
best in
yeah.
the world. Davidson also very good. Big fan of Davidson, but we did see a few times that, Canada's speed caused her problems. So there's going to be very fast players playing against her in the Olympics as well. So we'll see how she holds up.
No, that is true. That is fair. It's going to be a great measuring stick for a lot of the teams to see this. The Olympics is always a fun. It's a good competition because it's still full national teams. I think last question I'll ask you is I know I've seen this around. I'm a big proponent of it. How long do you think we will stick with the national teams before either FIFA or the Olympics steps in and says, maybe we want the competition to be more of a U23, similar to what they do with the men, but maybe have your 3 or 4 senior players that you can throw onto the squad, but then have it mainly be a U23. Do you think that is closer than not? Or do you think we're still a ways away from something like that happening?
That's a good question. I saw that kind of floating around the internet this week as well. I definitely see both sides of the argument. You asked how quickly that will happen. So I guess they added women's soccer to the Olympics in 2008, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what are we like? Oh no, quick math, like,
We're
16
going to
years,
16 years. Yeah.
16 years. So that's 4 Olympics with like full national teams. I think it'll still take at least 2 Olympics to make it a U23 tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Canada has to get a U23 team. Cheers.
Minor detail. Minor detail.
Most countries do have them now and have like
Mm-hmm.
robust systems. But I mean, if we sent our U20s, like literally, that would be a nightmare. But hopefully with the NSL, that problem kind of gets solved.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the idea just because of the congestion of the schedule. The
Yep.
ACL epidemic. I think probably it's good for the players if we took some load
Mm-hmm.
off there.
Agreed. And gives you another platform to showcase that, because I think that's the one thing I like about the Olympics. It's, in theory, it's the showcase of that next layer of stars that are coming up. That's what you see like in the men's, but it would be great platform for the women where instead post U20, you aren't just jumping in. Because I think that's the struggle with a lot of youth players or any youth player overall. Once you leave the youth system, you're not just competing with, say, your age mates. Now you're competing with the entirety of the pool. So giving them maybe one more platform to really set themselves apart, maybe that helps them launch their careers a little bit better. Maybe that gives them the opportunity to refine their game. And then once you hit the senior level, maybe you are comfortable where you are. You know what you are. You don't have to worry necessarily about chasing the national team call up. Not to say that you shouldn't, but I think ultimately give players another platform. I mean, I look at our RU23 range, like that would be like that's like the Anna Karpenkos and the Kayla Smalls, like
Mm-hmm.
the I just forgot her name. That was good. It'll come to me after we finish recording. But like think of even like all the Zoe Burns of the world and such like that. Like if
Mm-hmm.
this was their tournament, it'd be very intriguing to see. Okay, they're the young professionals, they're getting their feet wet in the game, and maybe for some of them, just fresh off the collegiate route, or some of them who've been playing professional for a few years, I would love to see that type of platform for them. Again, maybe not in the next couple years or next couple cycles, but maybe it gets in because I don't see FIFA slowing down in terms of adding more and more fixtures, and every federation's like, "What? You can make money off of the women? Oh, bring more
Hmm.
tournaments, bring more."
Yeah.
And it's just like, can they rest just a little bit, please? Just could we? No, we're
Just
not
a
going
two
to.
two
Okay,
week vacation? No? Okay.
2 weeks, huh?
Yeah.
You finish the season, go play European Copa America. It's like what? We're just
Yeah,
joining
it's
them together now. So yeah, I
exactly.
think the match fixture congestion is something I've always been talking about. So I would love to see it. If it takes 2 cycles, let's do it. Because hey, I'd rather give some young legs some more opportunities and another platform, and that allows you to grow the sport as it goes. So I'm pretty excited for that. That is also all the time we have for today. So guys, thank you for stopping by. If you're looking for AC Lang, make sure you hit up her up on her website, wsoccer.ca, as well as you can find her on X at wsoccer. Is it just wsoccer?
Wsoccer CA as well.
CA. Perfect. CA as well. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter for all things Canadian WOSO, please do so. I get my reminder emails all the time. It's how I keep track with the depth charts all the time. Thank you for making my life easier, AC. I
Of
can say it
course.
publicly now. You made my life so much easier with this. So thank you, guys. And thank you again, guys. And we'll see you guys next time. And until next time, we say bye-bye for now.
Take care.